computer minorities and what at one time we referred to as the digital divide. But I think, Mr. Perry, you've indicated that in a real sense, the digital divide, as we knew it when the two of us first started out, when at least when I first started with you, no longer exists in a real sense, but there's a different kind of digital divide rather than class now. Talk about that. Explain that.
I think it's more of the technology being available when we first started working with your show and all that. But now it's to the point where it's more of an age thing, where some of the older generations are afraid to get on the internet, or they're afraid to do something wrong on there. It's fear. For instance, I have my mother who just turned, she's in her 70s now, and she's just now getting on the internet. And so when she gets on there, she's afraid to start touching whatever it is. She's
like
afraid
I was when I first started.
So the internet divide, I think the digital divide, it becomes one of those things, whereas the age limit of the person is they're being forced into the digital world. And it's one of those things, I'm scared I'm going to break this. This isn't what I'm used to. Because, you know, as children, the first car that came out, it was made out of all metal, and the cars that we rode in, you could fit about 7 children, and they were big and huge. Where these things, they're real small, they're touch screens, and older generation folks, sometimes they have that mentality of things need to be bulky and big and hard and heavy before it becomes something that they're comfortable without breaking. So we see a little bit of that. I have a mother-in-law who is actually getting on, and in fact I have to teach her a class on how to do email. And it becomes one of those things, if you're not using it all the time, then you don't retain it as much. So we see a lot of older generation where they'll use it for a few minutes, but then after those few minutes, they'll stop using it and say, okay, I need a refresher course. How do I do this again? So we get a divide from, I think, where the age limits are. If you're a baby boomer, and the tail end of it, those that are born like maybe the early 60s, then those are the ones that were in on actually ushering in the computer age.
Okay.
But the ones that are after that, you know, earlier, maybe in the early 50s or mid 50s, they're learning how to get into it now. So it becomes one of those things, I think, where the age limits of using the data, using the information becomes the divide now.
Well, now, what would be your advice to an older person in reference to that now, in reference to how they might be able to overcome this fear in a real sense of the computer, which is to say that most people, I would imagine, that believe that if they do something, they're going to lose the results of all of that they've done up to that point, and without...
Well, the thing is, it's not where you're going to lose anything. You can always recover whatever you have. The computer comes with a recovery disk. So anything you do to it, short of hitting it with a hammer or dropping it off a desk table, you can recover from it. Sometimes the computers, they come, people get on the internet and they come with viruses, and viruses destroy a lot of data, but even that can be recovered. You just wipe your machine clean and then reinstall your information, and then you have your computer back. So it's not a matter of being afraid of what you're doing, it's just repetition. Repetition always helps you remember the last thing that you did, helps you in using the computer, so that, because that familiarity is what builds your confidence in using the computer.
So, and so the more you repeat a process, a step, the easier you are to understand it, and the more it becomes ingrained as part of you. But if you do it only occasionally, the next time you do it, you still might have some idea as to how it's done, but you're not able to do it exactly. But, so repetition is the most important thing, you would believe, in terms of...
And as with anything that you do, whether you started working a business and you know what you're going to do on your business that next day, if you continue to do it over and over, then you know what you got to do. That's your routine. But if you don't get on the computer one day, 2 days, 3 days, that fourth day is going to be harder and harder for you to remember what you did the last time. So it's a matter of just keep pushing at it and getting used to it and working on it. Now, it does take up a lot of time.
Good.
You get to working, sometimes I start working on a project and I look up and 3 hours have gone by and I'm supposed to be with the family or something. So it does take up time, and you want to be cautious of that. Maybe give yourself an hour or two, especially for younger kids. You don't want to give them so much time in a day working on a computer, and then we have all these health issues because of they're not outside playing. So,
Good.
so we want to make sure that we're aware of those issues, especially for children and for grown-ups. We can't sit in front of a computer all the time and knowing that our metabolism has slowed down so much that we need to get up and do some walking around and exercising.
So in a real sense, that's just almost as important as working on the computer itself.
It really is.
One of the,
And sometimes, you know, you get yourself a chair that swivels and do some of those exercises that turn around in your chair to help you keep your waist in shape or something. But you do have to get up and walk around. Your eyes start to go out, and you have to get away from that screen and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. It's very important. And then starting businesses and social networks, they're all so prevalent now that it can take up so much time away from you that you have to be aware of making sure you take care of yourself instead of sitting in front of the screen all day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the experiences that many people have, and I'm sure that you've had those experiences, and I've had them, and we have to be mindful of the fact that you just can't continue to sit there forever, you see, and you might be able to repeat a lot of things, but it's at the expense of the inability to do a lot of other things that you have to do.
Got to take care of the house, got to take care of the family and everything. So you just want to be aware and maybe give yourself an hour or two to do whatever you have to do and then come back later sometime to do it. There are other things that, you know, we look at. Sort of, I saw a report the other day that talked about how Google.
Well, I'll tell you, let's hold it. We're getting ready for our second commercial break, and then we want to come back and deal with that, because I understand some good information is coming. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.